Alfonso's here, the godfather of the game. Many years of wisdom, remember his name. Speakers on stage, they'll drop the keys. Unlock your power and seize the breeze.
I'm the Godfather, and what we want to do is we want to do these lessons from the Godfather, not just the big Godfather, but also the small Godfather. You want to learn? Yeah, we're going to learn something. What are we going to learn? We want to talk about the Brrrr strategy. I know when you first get into real estate, everyone keeps hearing Brrrr. Brrrr this, Brrrr that, and for a lot of people, because we live in Canada, they think that Brrrr means like brrrr, like you're cold. But no, the Brrrr strategy: you buy real estate, you renovate it, you rent it for more income, so you create more income, and you refi it, and then you repeat. You repeat, you repeat, you repeat. The Brrrr strategy is actually one of the best strategies to get started. When you get started in real estate, you're not always going to have the opportunity to have a lot of capital. Some people start with capital, and it really depends on your time availability. Are you in a position to go in and add value to a property? And so what we want to do with this video is get into the Brrrr strategy, give you some quick concepts so you understand exactly what the Brrrr strategy is. Let's start with the number one letter, which is B. Buy. Okay, so in real estate, you make your money on the buy. It's not like you can go to realtor.ca and just pick a property, buy it for $400,000, and automatically expect that because you added $100,000 of renovations, it should be worth $700,000 or $800,000. In fact, realtor.ca could be one source where you're going to find real estate. But all the real estate in all of North America is not only found on realtor.ca. So what I want you to do is understand that the buy is where you make your money. In real estate, you make your money on the buy. It's how you buy the real estate. That's why I'm wearing this shirt. They call me the Godfather because I'm making offers you can't refuse. Meaning you have to learn how to negotiate. You have to, you got to learn how to work people and connect with people and find win-win situations where you actually are going to be able to create a price reduction. You see, the buying of the real estate is easy. Anybody can do that. But you have to learn how to negotiate real estate so you can get price reductions. And so in real estate, the buy is extremely important. Most people think it's on the exit they make money, whether they're refining the property or they're selling the property. But in fact, it's in the way that you buy the property that actually will give you the profit or the biggest impact. So the buying, you want to get very specific. You want to create a deal flow management system so you have multiple deals coming to you. You want to connect with realtors. You want to go on realtor.ca. You want to go find some owners. Maybe you want to connect with owners. You want to make multiple offers until you get the price that is right. Now, I'm coming from the multifamily space, and it's all about the numbers, right? In real estate, for me, it's all about the numbers. Numbers never lie. And so the buy is extremely important. Now, let's go to the first R. The first R is renovate. Renovations. Okay, so you are going to add value through renovations, right? Improving the performance of the property. When it comes to the multifamily space, you can do two things: increase income or reduce expenses. Of course, when we look at the valuations of apartment buildings, we go directly to the net operating income. And so if you can increase the net operating income by increasing income or reducing expenses, automatically what you're gonna see is a lift in your property. So we want to add value through renovations. We want to impact the income that it can produce. Here's the problem that a lot of investors have. Number one, they over renovate. So what you want to do is be very competitive in the market. Why don't you do your research? Why don't you visit other apartments to see what they're actually renting for? How much renovations? How far did they go in terms of the luxuries? Do they have granite countertops, stainless steel appliances? And is that the target market that you're trying to go after? Remember, any type of renovation that you do, you should be able to impact the income of the property so you can create value. So the Brrrr strategy, not only do you have to buy it in the right way, but you have to actually put some thought into the renovations. You have to put some thought in exactly how much money is going to come out of your pocket in order to renovate that particular property. The second R, which is rent. Of course, once you've renovated the property, you've increased the value, because now you can command a higher rent. More income equals more value in real estate. And also, because you've renovated, now you have maybe higher efficiency toilets, maybe you have reduced the expenses. You've impacted the net operating income, which impacts the value of the real estate. And so now when you go to rent it, you can rent it for more, right? That's the key, right? The key is increasing the performance. When you buy this real estate, you're looking for underperforming properties where you can buy them at a discount, add value through renovations, increasing income and reducing expenses. So the second R is to rent that unit for more, or those units. Okay, I'm coming from the multifamily space, so you're gonna rent and create more income and reduce expenses. And this could be done many ways, many ways. You actually can impact the expenses by putting in new windows, efficiency boilers. How about, brand new toilets? Efficiency toilets, those old toilets from 1939 that when you flush them, you hear them from 3 miles away, and all of a sudden it takes up all the water, right? But how about this? Efficiency toilets, not only are they environmentally friendly, but they actually reduce the water expense, which has an impact on the value of the property. Those toilets, you flush them and they're like, all of a sudden, you're like, where did it go, right? So efficiency toilets actually can add value to your property. So buy it, renovate it, rent it for more, right? So now you have more income coming into that property. Now you go back to your bank. Now you go back to your lender, and because you've increased income, because you've reduced expenses, you now can refinance that property. So to give you a quick example, you've increased the income by, and I'm going to need a calculator. Could you pass me a calculator? Thank you. So let's say just by doing quick math here, okay? Let's say we have 50 units. And because of what you've done to the property, because all the renovations, and you've managed to bring in really great renovators, and you've done really great renovations, and you brought really great tenants, so a brand new tenant profile, well, they're paying a higher income. Not only are you getting higher income, but you're paying less in expenses. And so let's say you got $100 a door more right? This is not out of this world. You got $100 a door more. Now, we can get into multiple conversations on what would be the appropriate way to exit tenants. We can get into conversations on all the tenant rent control based on multiple different provinces and states all across North America. But let's just say that you could increase the income, and there's a variety of different strategies that you can use to do this, but let's just say $100 a door.
My name is Alfonso Cuadra. They call me the Godfather of real estate. I've been in business for over 30 years, in real estate over 26 years. I built a multi-million-dollar portfolio, and now I'm going across North America, talking to people and signing checks. I'm looking for deals because I'm building $1 billion portfolio. Is that you? Let me make an offer you can't refuse.
We just don't have enough information to make this decision. There's too many unknowns, and for that reason, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. Now, this is why I love multifamily, because $100 a door has a massive impact on the value of this property. So we're gonna say 50 times 100, $5,000, okay? $5,000 a month. So $5,000 a month times 12, that's $60,000, okay? $60,000 of new net operating income. So you've improved the net operating income by $60,000. And so if we simply divide that by, let's say this is in maybe a secondary market, tertiary market. I mean, we can get into conversations about cap rate, but let's just say a 4.5 cap, okay? For the sake of this argument. So that means you've increased the value of this property by $1.333 million, okay? You've added $1 million in value, right? Now I'm using this on a very big scale. You can do your math based on 3 units, 4 units, and there's multiple other videos that will talk about cap rates and things like that. But let's just say, what about the efficiencies, right? What about the efficiencies? Well, let's say because you have new efficient toilets, you have sensor lights, you put in new windows, you have a new boiler, new high level efficient boiler that you've installed. All of a sudden you have reduced the expenses of this building. You've reduced the water bill, the hydro bill, the gas bill. And so what are you going to do? Well, that's going to show up on your net operating income. Let's say you can find $30 in savings per unit. So we got 50 times 30, that's $1,500 a month in efficiencies, times 12. So times 12 is $18,000 a year in new savings. Not that only we moved the needle with the income, we increased it by over $1 million, but now because we did really good renovations, really thought out renovations where we maximize the renovation budget, where we were able to go in there and create really good efficiencies, toilets, windows, things like that. And you've added an additional $18,000 to your net operating income. And if we divide that by a 4.5 cap, that's an additional $400,000 of new value to your property, not to take into account the income part of the equation, where you've added $1.3 million in new value in your property. So once you have the new value, and by the way, I'm using 50 units because I'm a multifamily person, right? I'm a multifamily guy. This can go right to your single family home, right? You have one house, you add a secondary unit in the basement, you've created new income. When you create new income, you automatically impact the value of that property. And so that's the biggest key about the Brrrr strategy. Because a lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to buy a property, renovate it, and rent it. Well, no. First of all, you have to buy it right. First of all, you have to, have a really clean renovation budget, so you don't over-renovate. And number three, you have to be able to capture more income and reduce the expenses, so now that property is now more valuable. And then we attack that third R. The third R is the refi. You go back to your bank or lender, and you give them the numbers. You show them what you've done. You've increased income. You've reduced expenses. The property now is more valuable. You're going to get an appraisal, right? It's not you wishing, hoping. A lot of people just smoking the hopium. It's not wishing that the property is worth more. You actually have to get it appraised. And you get it appraised, you get a new appraisal, you go to your lender, you go to your mortgage broker, you go to your bank, and now the bank is going to lend you based on the new value. They may give you 70-30 loan to value. They may give you 80-20 loan to value, right? And here's the key to the Brrrr strategy. New debt. So if you're going to add new debt to the property, it needs to be covered by new income, right? The performance has to be there. Lenders use a formula called DCR, debt coverage ratio. The asset itself needs to be able to carry itself. You need to be able to service the new debt with the new income. And so once you refi it and you pull out cha-ching, 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 now when you pull out the money, the new added value, you can pull out money. Now the Godfather's happy. So you pull out you pull out cash, you refi it, and guess what? That money is not to buy a boat. That money is not to go and pay off your Christmas list or pay off your credit cards. No, that money is simply to be used to reinvest, because that's the key, right? Now, when you pull out money, here's the other added value. Borrowed money is not it's not a taxable event. Meaning, when you refi the property, now if you had an exit right here, where you instead of refi, you sold it. You sold that. You sold that asset. So you bought it, you renovated, you increased the value, and then you sold it. If that was the case, you would be subject to capital gains, cap gains tax. But because you are refinancing, the key to the Brrrr strategy is the refi, because you don't pay taxes on borrowed money. Let me say that again. You do not pay taxes on borrowed money. What does that mean? It means that because you're not selling it, you're simply restructuring the debt. You are going to refi this asset. There is no capital gains because you haven't sold it. It's not a taxable event. And that is the key to the Brrrr strategy. You buy it, make sure you make money on the buy. You renovate it, make sure you don't over-renovate. You add value by increasing income, reducing expenses. You rent it for more, so more income now is being produced. This property goes from an underperforming property to a performing property. You've improved the performance of this asset, and then you go back and then you pull the equity, the newfound built equity, you pull it out, and then you continue to reinvest. And this is why the last R is my favorite. The last R is my favorite R. Here it is. Repeat. Do it over and over and over again, especially if you're getting started. This is the strategy that I used when I got started 23 plus years ago. I use the same down payment over and over and over and over. The Brrrr strategy makes it so you can use the same down payment over and over and over and over and over. Imagine this, one down payment can equal maybe 20 to 30 properties that are cash flowing. There's nothing better than that.
Join us for our 10th and biggest Expand Investor Conference. And this year, this November, we are doing it in Calgary, Alberta. Yeah! And it's gonna be a big one. And I want you to go and get your tickets right away. Our Expand Investor Conference, our 10th edition of our Expand Investor Conference is happening in Alberta. Get your tickets right away.